we help owners and managers with is just the understanding that until they do the work to eliminate pain points for their team and make the team member experience hospitable, they can't realistically expect a great hospitality experience for their customers. And so they should start there. Hello and welcome to True Hospitality, the More Fun Tomorrow podcast. I'm Alan Booth.
I'm Justin Garcidiaz.
And I'm Jakup Martini from Poached.
True Hospitality is the More Fun Tomorrow podcast where we explore inward hospitality, humble curiosity, and conflict competence to build capable culture. This first episode is an introduction to what true hospitality is all about. Enjoy.
I think that the one thing I did mention the last time we met together was, sort of 2025 and kind of prepping for that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing, just word on the street, is that everyone's kind of high tension.
You're just hearing that?
I mean...
yeah, word on the street.
Why? I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this stuff is gold now. Moving into January, New Year's Eve is going to be nuts. And they're going to have to figure out how to, do the rest of the year. Once January hits, and I'm mad at her, I'm mad at him, she's mad at me, and how do we get back together?
In hospitality, we absorb so much with a smile on our face. When we're doing our best, we are giving to others and also just absorbing a lot of stuff, and that's in the best of times. So when you have, an amped up public that is also trying to make the best holiday happen ever on a shoestring budget because of inflation, plus, the percolating sense of existential dread that everyone is kind of thinking about heading into the new year. Mm-hmm. There's just so much that we and teams just kind of take on and hold, and it has to go somewhere. And sometimes without a plan to provide care to each other, it manifests in all sorts of strange or harmful ways that we don't necessarily intend to, but just shit happens.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Shit happens. I mean, it's kind of funny because you think that, like you were saying, in the hospitality industry, we absorb a lot of it. I had the recent luxury / interesting experience of working a couple of shifts of service, which I haven't done in many years, and remembering those little skills, the phone voice, the smile and then turn around and your smile's gone.
Yeah.
That sort of I have to be the energy suck, the energy sponge for everybody that walks in here.
Yeah.
And all of the coworkers, all of the people around you that are also taking that on and dealing with their own stress.
We don't really acknowledge it enough.
Yeah.
And and this gets, sorry to go right into the heart of what we're all about, but this gets to the core of what inward hospitality is all about. And, until we really made an organized effort around bringing people together to serve one another before we even open the doors for service in an intentional way, we were continuously, being confronted by these conflicts that arise because we're absorbing so much and there's no outlet. And so first things first is, we've got to be able to take care of each other. To be able to take care of each other, we have to take care of ourselves. And then we can put on a great show and provide care to other people that really need it. Yeah. I think one of the things that we know is that hospitality is a powerful force in the world, and now more than ever, people need that in their lives, and people are feeling more disconnected and lonely and more stressed and bombarded, and more, it's just a really I've been in the business for a long time, and I feel like more than ever it is a calling that folks have to provide that experience to others, but also it's it's harder and harder and harder every year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good segue. Like, why don't you give me a sort of a 1,000-foot view? What is the major sort of mission statement of More Fun Tomorrow?
I think at the highest level, it's to create a more hospitable industry that is vital and kind of prepared for the next era, having, come through so much change these past few years and learned so much about what we all need and deserve. And so we're all about partnering with people to help folks learn to practice inward hospitality and approach things at work and with clients and customers with humble curiosity, and be ready for conflicts should they arise, and approach it with a planned competence. And so without an organizing language to talk about this stuff, it's very difficult for teams to create an understanding that they can then work with through thick and thin.
I think that we have, this being America, we spend so much time at work, and we, as a society, as a culture, are less and less have available the same sort of restorative resources that we used to have, like church, community organizations, things like that. And so if you are a human existing in the modern reality and you spend all of your time working for your paycheck because you live in modern America,
right,
where do you go with, where do you find that community? Where do you find that those outlets for your, frustrations and your celebrations? There's so much, I think, traditionally, where we think about the hospitality industry as this is a place where guests come to have a good time and to connect with each other. But I think that the time of leaving your bullshit at the door and just clocking into work is gone, because we don't have another place to put our bullshit anymore.
Right.
So as work communities, we have to have the skills and the resources necessary to create a hospitable environment for the people next to us before we can be expected to provide that to the guests that walk in the door looking to celebrate New Year's Eve or birthdays or anniversaries or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think about that. Like, that is a real, and it's a rare skill to be able to disconnect from work as you leave. I mean, I spend a lot of time sitting down with my friends after their shift. All they want to do is sort of relive it so that they can, and I watch, and I sort of love the sort of the exaggeration to show the point. Like, it's not just one snide remark. It's, she looked at me like she hated me. You kind of have to sort of get yourself there so that you can communicate how horrifying the situation was to you, right? And so you have to sort of bring someone along. And I watch people sort of venting and going, oh, and I can't believe this happened, and that happened again, and oh my God, that's the third time. And they're sort of like working themselves into sort of a frothy mess. And then you add alcohol to it, which, I mean, if you choose to do that, that's fine, but it does take away a lot of that next day's ability to deal with anxiety and stress. And so you're sort of like working yourself up into this sort of like angry mess after at that moment, really, you should be beginning to detach yourself from everything that happened.
Well, yeah, if you aren't able to work through things at work and come to, through discourse and dialogue and creating understanding and solving problems and clearing the air, then you have to take all that work on after hours.
Right.
And that's not necessarily a place where it's going to be most productive. It's like, that's where you vent, that's where you decompress, but then it's a perpetual motion machine. It's here we go again the next day and the next day and the next day. And that's not enough anymore. 2020, when everything paused, many of us took that opportunity to reassess what we wanted the industry to look like and what we were interested in being a part of. And it's really now an opportunity for us to level up and for us to no longer leave our life at the door and enter work, or leave work at the door and enter life, but to provide hospitality to each other when we're at work, so that we have a place where we can belong and grow skills that we'll use throughout our lives, and to have just a better, more positive, optimistic outlook in a very cynical world.
Right.
That's what we get to do
Right.
with each other.
That I really feel like that's very poignant what you mentioned about, if you can't handle it, if you don't get it digested at work, it's gonna sit there and sort of fester.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think maybe a manager or someone in a leadership role might look at them and go, look, just the shift's almost over, you'll be fine. And that's not exactly the best way to do it, is that to go and sort of send them off on their own and go, hey, I know this was a mess, but you're going to take that time off.
We made it through it. We made it through it. Right. More power to the manager in that scenario, because they haven't necessarily been prepared to identify an opportunity to, okay, obviously there's some tension in this corner, or there was a conflict, or we had a problem that we made it through, but let's pause, learn from that, come together and debrief, settle some disagreements or misunderstandings, invest the time now so we're building a better, more fun tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about. And, on the ownership side of the coin and the restaurateur side of the coin, this is all about building a really solid, functional, high-performing team that wants to be together, that can do anything they set their minds to. We know hospitality is nearly impossible.
Right.
It's running a restaurant or a hotel operation and, serving guests day in, day out in today's environment is nearly impossible, but we do it anyway because we love those moments of connection. We love those experiences that we have creating experiences for others. It's everything that happens in between and on the side and between those moments of greatness and happiness that takes a lot of work. That's, it's tricky. Yeah. Margins are thin, costs are high, time is short, customer expectations have never been higher, and we have less resources to put towards that, but we still do it anyway because we love the chance to create those moments. And so we have to figure out how we set each other up for success and grow these skills that make it more sustainable and easier along the way. And that's what we're here to do with people.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's is it something that requires like a whole team, like complete buy-in, or can one or two people start to make a real adjustments that actually move the ship?
Well, it starts with yourself.
Yeah.
So I think we often talk about inward hospitality as the intentional mindset that once we make it and agree that this is the way we're going to approach work and supporting this endeavor and making decisions, then everything follows. But it starts with yourself. And if you're not getting what you need, and if you're not ready, then you're not ready to give it to someone else or to even be a part of a team dynamic. So
yeah, I think yes to all of that. I think yes, it requires whole team buy-in, but I don't think it needs to start with whole team buy-in. I think it does start on the individual level. I think it does, it starts with that and grows from there, and then it does turn into a couple of people making commitments and changing the direction. And I think it depends on the way stuff like this is introduced and the way that it's adopted. Like, I think it can be done from the leadership level to be introduced to concepts like inward hospitality. But it also can just be a commitment that individuals on the team level make and they push it upward. There is I think we alluded a bit to the pandemic kind of conversation around what we expect and want out of our industry, out of our service industry, hospitality workers, and what we are willing to tolerate and accept as the cost of working in this industry has shifted. And that comes from the workers themselves. And with the right sort of skills and mentality about it, I think there is a holistic and healthy way to address those concerns and those needs and those the lines in the sand that need to be drawn in a way that is actually productive and actually meaningful, and not just a hard reaction to years and years of systemic abuse and problems that we all are very aware of in this industry.
And go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to add that, it's just good business and it's infectious. So when you provide care to a team member or to someone that needs help in your workplace, that takes the tension out of the air. That provides a lift in spirits. It demonstrates empathy. It creates trust and builds this openness that didn't exist before. And that person's that much more willing to do that with the next person that they work with or, are interacting with. And then that grows. And that's before you even organize with a level of intentionality that is planful. And that's where the true opportunity for leadership and ownership comes in is to create an environment that is structurally hospitable. So making sure that people know what to expect, anticipating their needs, making sure that folks know what the plan is on any given day, any given week, what the plan for the year is, how we all benefit if we do this thing together, creating this kind of ecosystem of connection that is according to a plan that everybody understands and has visibility to. We don't often spend enough time to articulate that in a workplace, and especially in a fast-moving restaurant with people coming and going. But just that simple act of saying, here's the plan, here's how you fit in, and here's what your job does for the rest of the organization, the rest of the team, and it's meaningful. It has meaning. That right there creates a completely different set of circumstances for someone to buy into, and it's infectious and it's attractive.
Yeah, I imagine you have a positive experience just utilizing some of this mentality, and you're going to kind of get greedy for it. And you're going to want to have that interaction with everybody, because it just means throughout that day you're sort of working more as a cohesive unit because you're all on the same page.
Yeah, and it creates an environment where people feel safe because they know what to expect. There's a set of agreements that have been made or are underway, and folks can trust one another, and they can take risks, and they don't have to worry about being ridiculed if they make a mistake, or raising their hand with an idea on how to make something better. And that is the secret sauce to a team that can do anything, is when everyone feels safe sharing their best ideas and getting out of their comfort zone and into their learning zone and doing new things, then that moves everyone forward, and that creates growth, that creates opportunity, that keeps people coming back for more, and that enables true hospitality to happen between a guest and a team.
Yeah.
You've been to restaurants or bars or a spa or wherever where you can tell that someone's been trained for service, and you can tell that they have a point of view on what their hospitality should look like but you can also tell that they're not having a good time, and they're not feeling that it's a hospitable situation or experience or opportunity for them, and so you can feel it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between experiencing good service, good customer service, and a hospitality connection that feels a certain way that you want to come back for.
It for sure translates. And you feel it. Those vibes are there.
Yeah. I mean, hospitality is a two-way dialogue of connection. It's not just a recipient, and otherwise, it's not a sustainable, true hospitable experience for anyone, and it's extractive.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we help owners and managers with, is just the understanding that until they do the work to eliminate pain points for their team and make the team member experience hospitable, they can't realistically expect a great hospitality experience for their customers. And so they should start there.
Yeah.
And that's always, that's where buy-in really happens. And you create a space for a dialogue between ownership, management, team members around what really is in the way, what really matters, what problems are really important to solve. And you start there. Yeah. And then you can talk about, points of service and sales growth and, selling the next promotion or whatever it is, because everyone's like, okay, I feel like not only am I seen and my voice matters, but I'm able to focus on those things because I'm ready to be a part of driving this business instead of just coping.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that sort of makes me think of the, differentiating between the concepts of service and hospitality. I think that hospitality is, and has been since the dawn of time, regarded as a virtue of humanity. It's the test of your humanness and your closeness to enlightenment and to all of those things. Like you can, if you pull out a book of Greek mythology, the gods show up on your front door, and how you treat guests in your home determines what happens to you in the afterlife. Like, these are things that have been built into our understanding of our philosophy as humans since forever. Service is perhaps a avenue, a tool of hospitality, but it is not the same thing. I think somewhere along the lines, somewhere along history, the word hospitality was turned into a job. It was turned into a commodity because capitalism. And we got away from viewing it as the virtue that it is. And I think if you can adopt that sort of thought process, that like how I treat strangers, how I treat guests in my home, guests in my business, and as a leader, how I treat my staff, my team members, the people that I'm expecting to deliver that level of service, service as the commodity, hospitality as the like virtue. That's, I think, the difference maker and the make it or break it mentality for you as an owner, as a leader, as a mentor to others.
Yeah, you can't really make someone feel special begrudgingly.
It's hard.
But I mean,
not for very long.
Not for very long.
Yeah, it's not very sustainable. And
people talk about it as a soul-sucking process to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is because it is extractive. It is,
right.
I'm going to quote unquote dig deep, and I'm going to fake it, or I'm going to kill them with kindness and all those things, instead of just, I'm ready. I can see someone else that they walked into my world not in a great place. I have the opportunity to make them feel better.
Yeah.
And I get to do that with my time and get paid for that. And I get to learn how to do that better and better every day. Great. I'm in. When hospitable conditions are the conditions that life requires.
Right.
And we evaluate planets on their level of hospitality. And this is not, it goes back to Greek mythology further, but it's like a biological imperative. Either you have the conditions that are set and hospitable for life and thriving and growing, or you don't, and you need to keep adding resources back into that to compensate for that fact. Yep. And that's where our worlds intersect, is helping folks create a hospitable environment with the conditions and practices in place for growth, for life, for culture, so that folks can enter and be a part of that and feel like they belong and that they're right where they do belong.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great point, is that you have to throw resources at something that is resource heavy. When you're draining whatever social battery or whatever battery that you have, emotional, sort of fortitude in a situation, when you are low, you have to overcompensate for that. That energy could be just used effectively just to have these interactions and have them pleasantly.
Well, in a hospitable, capable culture is self-sustaining.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas one that is extractive needs continuous inputs of resources to just keep going.
Yeah.
And
limping along.
That refill for that battery has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And if you are a server working on the floor at a restaurant and your tables are extracting that energy and that they're sucking the soul, and then you turn around and your coworkers and your manager are extracting that resource as well, right, and there's nowhere for you to go to be replenished because the environment that you're working in is so extractive, what are you supposed to do? Right. How do you continue to provide a level of warm, welcoming, engaging hospitality to guests when you got nowhere else to go to fill that battery up?
Yeah.
So if we can focus on creating that within the work environment and recognizing that it's our responsibility to help our team members and our staff fill their batteries as they're being depleted on the floor, that's the goal. Yeah. That's how you keep it going and, indefinitely.
The lifeblood of hospitality is information and communication and connection. And so whether you're on the floor, in the kitchen, in the office, if you don't know what your role is, if you don't know what the plan is, if you don't have the information you need to learn at the speed of the need of the business, to learn what you want to learn, like why you got into it in the first place, if you're not getting that, then you're sitting in a situation where you need that to come from somewhere to keep at it, or you're just coping and it's just a matter of time before you go seeking it somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I find it fascinating, your experience of negative events. There's catastrophe and then there's inconvenience, but your ability to recognize the difference between inconvenience and catastrophe is greatly reduced when you have no bandwidth. So, they said no cheese, and you have a plate full of cheese and you're you could either burst into tears, or you could be I need to refire this, this needs to go back, and handling those situations quickly is the only way to do it, not to scream at, who, and start to try and figure out what the problem was, which I actually hear a lot when I'm a manager that's not supposed to be on the floor might be trying to reverse engineer the problem after it just happened, when really all they need to do is just deal with the symptom at that moment.
Right.
What's maybe you could kind of talk about at one point, if you don't build a system in advance, you're stuck sort of building a system in the midst of events.
Yeah, I think if you don't know that there's going to be a place to go later to figure it all out and learn what happened and build a better mousetrap for tomorrow, then you freeze in those moments sometimes to, you're anticipating, okay, they said no cheese. I rang it in with cheese. I'm about to go create conflict when I go to my manager. I don't necessarily know how they're going to react because we don't really have a lot of trust and connection.
Great point.
Or I'm going to go to the kitchen and ruin their moment, and I don't know what that's going to do for them because we're not really connected and we're not going to work it out later. And, you know, what do I do? And then it's like, you know, the guest is suffering, the team member is suffering, the company or the restaurant or the brand is suffering, and it's because of disconnection and, you know, this fear of being ridiculed or not having, you know, the support you need to fail and recover and, you know, learn and move on. And, you know, those managers that are trying to reverse engineer in the moment or whatever you were saying, I think a lot of times people get stuck in their head trying to be right about something versus just be effective.
Oh, yeah.
And if we create an environment where we all trust each other because we've agreed on a certain set of practices, because we know shit's going to happen.
Right.
Conflict is good.
Yeah.
Avoiding conflict is bad. Making conflict worse because you're approaching it without competence is the thing that everyone fears.
Yeah.
And so they avoid conflict. But if there's a plan, hey, when shit happens, this is how we're going to deal with it. And we're going to take advantage of those moments so that we can grow closer as a team, learn some shit, and maybe fix little bottlenecks or problems or get the tool we need that we now know we need. But if we don't have that plan in place, if we don't have that dialogue and that discourse available to us, we're just a bunch of strangers trying to do almost an impossible thing in, you know, time-constrained situations where people want cheese or no cheese.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's tricky.
It is. I think it's, you know, that's the difference between the environment that creates, whether it's the kind of environment where you can make a mistake and walk up to the past and say, hey, I rang this in wrong. Sorry about that. This is what I need. And have the chef or the manager be like, no problem. Mistakes happen. Let's fix it. Or you're the kind of place where you're like, I don't know, they didn't say no cheese. Like, she didn't tell me that she didn't want cheese, but now she doesn't want cheese. And so now I have to have you refire it. And you're like, and the chef is like, you're an idiot. Why are you such an idiot? Like, those are
Just tell me what you need.
Yeah, they just scream at you. And it's
I don't care. Just tell me what you need right now
and then
so I can move on with my life.
Tomorrow you come in and you get ridiculed at lineup because you screwed it up. And it's like, those are two vastly different environments that have completely different value systems and structures in place. And I think we can have a conversation about which one's more effective and which one isn't.
And the key, though, to that, yes to all of that, but at the end of the day, accountability is also hospitable.
Sure.
And so, yes, you make a mistake. Yes, you own up to it openly, and we work together to solve it as quickly as possible. But then it's your responsibility to learn from that mistake and to improve over time. And that's the deal we all make with each other, is that we're gonna own our shit. We're gonna be honest. We're not gonna blame each other. We're gonna take responsibility, and we're gonna be held accountable to what we said we were going to do. And that's providing hospitality to that chef. That's like, I'm gonna bail you out right now. I'm gonna stop everything I'm doing because you made a mistake. I'm gonna help you make it right, and then I'm gonna work double time to get back on track to where I was left off. But my expectation is that this is going to happen less and less over time.
Right.
And if we've created an environment where we're holding each other and ourselves accountable to improvement and growth, great. We can do anything.
Yeah.
But if this is just the 1,000th time that chef has seen that same thing from this front of house team, then that creates a wedge of disconnection. And we see that a lot in this industry of, you know, we got our shit together over here, but we're being held back because those folks across the room aren't living up to their end of the bargain.
Yeah. No, it really comes back to your comment about information and your example of sort of needing to over-explain. If you're in an environment or you're in a point in your life where you're not feeling listened to, that you're not feeling like you have sort of the respect or the trust from your teammates, you will over-explain. You're going to come to that scenario and go, I have to mention all of these things so they understand that I'm not just an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually show up at that window and you know that you have a bit of mutual respect or at least a good communication and rapport between the two of you, you can go, fuck it, this wasn't supposed to have cheese on it. Who knows who's to blame? She could have not mentioned it. The customer could have not mentioned it. I could have forgot. I could have rang it in and you forgot. It doesn't matter. We don't need to play that game at that moment. And so it's what's really fascinating is that what you guys are talking about is creating an environment where all of that information, you've done the work to create those relationships. And so those moments can be much more quick. They can be much more efficiently processed and moved on from.
Yeah. You've done the work to set the stage with understanding and connection that puts everyone on the same safe playing field.
Yeah.
Where we can go at it hard and fast and win 99% of the time, and that 1% that we fuck up is like part of the deal, and we just work through.
Right.
And either you've established the plan that's going to happen, or you know that you will, because that's the understanding in the culture. It's a capable culture.
Yeah.
And that's the difference maker between teams that limp along and, do okay, and teams that thrive and crush it and drive margin and grow business and, are able to do more volume during crunch time.
Right. And
love every minute of it.
Right.
And that's what it's really about. That's what people get hooked on, and those are those like moments of glory that keep a lot of us in the game.
Right.
Yeah. How was your service? You were helping your friend with a couple services. How were those?
It was fascinating.
Did you get any of those juicy moments?
My knees are a little sore. Yeah, I think, I'm not going to give away too much information, but it was interesting to see some of the classic restaurant environment tropes play out in front of me after having been removed from it for a bit. There was a lineup call out. There was a mistake that was made the night before, and the person involved got ridiculed by the manager, and I had to keep my mouth shut because I don't actually work here. And then that server came later on to me and was like, yeah, the whole reason this happened is because I was scared that if I did this thing, I would get yelled at. And I was like, ooh.
You were scared.
Unfortunately, you still got yelled at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Akis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The research tells us that the most important thing a team dynamic is enabled by, or the one thing that makes a difference between a team succeeding and thriving and growing and crushing it and limping along, is this idea of psychological safety. And years ago, Google did this study of all of their teams. I think they did like this 50,000 person study to try to understand, like, of all of the things that we do, what matters most? Is it, the amount of experience we put into our teams, like recruiting folks that are just the perfect combination of capabilities and personality types? And, do we need, this strength and this strength combined with this? No, at the end of the day, it's, do people feel safe taking risks?
Oh, yeah.
Do people feel safe speaking up? Do they feel like there's an invitation for candor? Mm-hmm. Or are they worried about breaking a rule? Are they worried about, saying the wrong thing, making a mistake, and getting, kicked off the team? And those teams that everyone felt safe, contributing, being themselves, learning, growing, making mistakes, those are the ones that made Google all the money.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that they isolated and trained into the rest of their organization. So if that's what all the money in the world can come back to as the aha, I mean, that's essentially that's what we're talking about here. It's creating hospitable conditions where everyone feels that and can be at their best.
Yeah.
And the industry is full of a bunch of folks that hospitality is why we're even coming to work. And so I think we just need to celebrate and acknowledge that using that force internally is really the unlock that it is.
Hell yeah.
I think you also, I mean, like you mentioned, the hospitality industry is full of people who come to work because that's what they're passionate about. It's what they like to do. But it's also a group of people across the country that need hospitality the most. And you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, like the fears and anxieties and concerns that are coming down ahead of us in the years to come, in 2025 and beyond. Those fears and anxieties that we're all talking about on the street disproportionately affect people that work in the hospitality industry in many different ways. And not to bring back a 2024 meme, but we all exist in the concept and in the context of everything that has come before and everything that we didn't just fall out of the coconut tree.
Sure.
That the people that work in the industry that need the hospitality the most are the most affected by those things that we're all afraid of.
Right.
Like it's on us as leaders, owners, managers to be aware of that, to provide for that, to make sure that people are feeling that they're safe, that they're taken care of, that those needs, those fears and anxieties are respected, and that our little institution, whatever it may be, mom and pop restaurant or giant restaurant, like, we can take care of you. You're safe here. You can bring those fears and anxieties and know that you're not going to be ridiculed or left behind because of them.
Yeah.
And it's also, yes, to all that. It's also an industry where this is where a lot of us learned or are learning how to be in the world with others at work for the first time. And, in a world where, we're increasingly cynical about everything and everyone, and we're more isolated from each other, and our attention spans are more fractured than ever, we have to be intentional about what we do when we get together and start playing this team sport.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that everyone has a base level of skill and understanding, and we get those skills through this industry. Yeah. That's the value proposition that an owner or a manager or a, organization can extend to bring great people together. Is you can expect these things in this environment, this level of experience or safety or, conditions or just the basics, but also here's what we intentionally do here and what you're going to be able to learn, and that skill set you can't get anywhere else, because it's hard to get that stuff online. It's these human skills.
I mean, maybe impossible.
Yeah.
It just takes experience, and you have to have all these scenarios sort of thrown at you so that how to roll with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we want to make sure and let everybody know that they can bring their troubles to us.
Yeah.
So we want to mention that we were going to definitely encourage everybody to bring situations, unsolvable problems to the podcast, and then we would like to. I mean, you can redact it. We probably won't be calling out names. I will be specifically if I recognize anyone. I'm going to call them out. But that's just me, and I don't know. I don't know that many people, but we want to have everyone, bring us your issues, bring us your stories, and maybe stuff that worked, even if you'd like, and we could probably handle some of it. And if you'd like to be a part of that, we would love to encourage everybody to just bring us whatever they have.
Yeah, we're here to learn, and we're here to help.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we would love to just hear about anything that, folks are facing, grappling with, things they've learned, and share it with others.
Yeah.
Like this is super fun, super cool.
What are we what's the name of it? What are we doing?
Well, I think, More Fun Tomorrow is our organization and what we're all about, really. And if this turns into a podcast, it's going to be all about true hospitality. And so we might call it the True Hospitality Podcast.
Dig it.
I like that.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I think it sounds great.
You're the MC.
Yeah.
You're the boss. So
we can whiteboard it. We can throw some names up there.
I really like More Fun Tomorrow. I think it's got a ring to it.
I dig it too. This has been the True Hospitality Podcast. I'm Jakup Martini.
I'm Alan Booth.
I'm Justin Garcidiaz.
Hope you enjoyed it. As always, please write in, call us, go to the morefuntomorrow.com website, and send us your stories, send us your issues that you're dealing with. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to cover some of this stuff on the podcast. So please don't be shy. Connect with us on socials, and we'll get the conversation going.